Welcome back to the second part of your cardiovascular system video lecture. Now, we're starting on the heart because it's a key aspect of the circulatory system. It's a hollow red organ, which is the size of your fist, and it is found in the centre of the thorax. It is around about 4 inches in length and weighs between 250 to 300 grams. And it is divided into 4 chambers. Now, you have your upper chambers, or atria. These are your receiving chambers, and you have 2 of them. You have your right atria and your left atria. We also have your left ventricle, which is your lower chambers, and these are your left ventricle and your right ventricle. Now, these chambers are your pumping chambers. Now, the septum divides the left and the right side, and it's a muscular wall. Now, the function of the septum is that it stops from the blood from the veins coming into contact with the arteries. Now, we're going to be looking at what the heart is actually made up of. You've got your myocardium, which is the middle coating of the heart. It is a thick muscular coat, and it enables the heart to beat throughout life. You have the endocardium, which is a smooth, delicate membrane. It lines the chambers of the heart and folds back on itself, which actually form the heart valves. It has a protective function and it prevents any leakage. It can withstand any large amounts of pressure. And then lastly, we have your pericardium, which is the outer layer, and it's the double-walled sac that contains the heart. Now, we're going to be moving on to looking at the blood cells. We have the red blood cells, or your erythrocytes. They are circular biconcave in shape, and they do not contain a nucleus. There is approximately 5 million red blood cells per cubic millimetre of blood. It is made up of a protein substance called hemoglobin, and these contain iron and pigment. Now, they are manufactured in your red bone marrow, and it's presented in your cancellous bone tissues at the end of a long bone and between the layers of your compact bones in flat and irregular bone. Now, your lifespan of a red blood cell or erythrocyte is around about 120 days. After this, they become distorted in the bloodstream or your spleen. Now, the iron is then transported to the liver and is stored in the formation of new erythrocytes, and the pigment is converted into bile. Now, your function of the erythrocytes is to carry oxygen from the lungs and to distribute it to the tissues and the cells. We're now going to be moving on to your white blood cells. Now, these transport cells much larger than the red blood cells, and there is around about 8 to 10,000 per cubic millimetre of blood. Now, the structure of these are that they are large, irregular shaped cells, and they do contain a nucleus. There is approximately 8,000 per millimetre of blood, and they will increase rapidly when there is infection. They are actually produced in bone marrow. And the lifespan of these can vary from cell to cell. They can survive for hours or years, depending on the type and how they are used. Then the lymphocytes do pass through capillary walls, and they can pass into tissues. We also have thrombocytes, which are platelets. Now, these are small, fragile cell fragments, and they do contain mitochondria, but they do not contain a nucleus. Now, the function of a thrombocyte is that it contains various elements that are responsible for clotting of the blood. There is around about 250,000 per millilitre of blood, and they are produced in bone marrow, and they form parts that break off large cells. And the lifespan of these cells are 10 days. Now, you will be looking at the diseases and disorders of this system in your research activity that you will need to be sending back to your tutor.